What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as the tampering period has officially begun about 35 minutes ago. This will probably be up around 1, and I'll be live at 1 to talk about it with all you guys. But I kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that have already come out regarding free agency and the New York Giants and some former players. Kevin Zeitler has officially signed on with the Baltimore Ravens. We'll get into the exact contract specifics. The reason he was able to do that, well, he wasn't a free agent. He was cut by the New York Giants, so he was able to sign much like J.J. Watt was because he was cut with a team before the free agency period officially took off. We've also received word about Shaq Barrett as he now sets the market for the edge rusher position. Of course, Leonard Williams is trying to show some power and get as much money as he can. Well, I think most people wouldn't argue that Shaq Barrett is at least on par with Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams right now is tagged at $19.3 million. Now, of course, Barrett is circumstantial. He's going back to a team that won the Super Bowl. And yes, you could certainly argue that he may be taking somewhat of a discount. But if the New York Giants plan to pay Leonard Williams a lot more than what Shaq Barrett got, it wouldn't be the wisest of decisions to chew up your cap that way. And I think that Leonard Williams probably lost a little bit of bargaining power when this contract came out. We're going to go over all of it, and we'll see how the Leonard Williams situation plays out as the offseason continues. I continue to say I would like to have Leonard Williams back, but at a fair price. I'm not going to pay well above market rate to make sure he's in a New York Giants uniform, because then that will limit us from potentially retaining some other players on this roster down the line. And we'll see how it all plays out. But the first thing we're going to pull up is just this about Kenny Golladay. Now, I did not see this, but I heard it from several people on Twitter that Adam Schefter on TV, not via tweet, said that the New York Giants will in fact be meeting with Kenny Golladay this week, coming out from WBG. Don't always agree with everything that the guy has to say on Twitter, but he does have a pretty high credibility when it comes to breaking some news about the New York Giants, things that may not necessarily be tweeted, but things that are on TV. And according to him and according to several others, I'm not going to pull up all the tweets, the New York Giants and Kenny Golladay will be meeting, you would assume, via Zoom to potentially talk about contract details with the New York Giants. Now, of course, they could agree to the money today. The contract does not become official to the 17th if this does, in fact, happen. And then they'll have to figure out how they're going to maneuver some cap to make sure that they could get him on this roster. But according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, free agent wide receiver Kenny Golladay is set to meet with the Giants today. And if in fact that is true, you have to at least assume that the New York Giants have an opportunity. We don't know what other teams may be meeting with Kenny Golladay, but he is the biggest free agent on the open market. Now we're starting to see some contracts leak, and maybe he won't make quite as much as initially projected, and maybe he'd want to take a one-year contract knowing that the market will accelerate next year. But the Giants at least seem to be somewhat in play for Kenny Galladay's services. Next thing I want to pull up was about Kevin Zeitler, and I know a lot of Giants fans are going to flip out about this, the fact that Kevin Zeitler ended up signing with the Baltimore Ravens. But the way I look at this is nothing but positive, and it just reaffirms the Giants' decision to move on from Zeitler. Now, you could argue that why couldn't the Giants get a restructure done like this? Who's to say that Kevin Zeitler wanted to stay with the Giants? Who's to say that he wanted to do a restructure with the Giants? And who's to say that the Giants wanted to keep him on the books for 3 years? We'll never know. It's questions. We'll never have the answers. But what I can tell you is this, based on this contract, it seems like the guard market is going to be very low. Kevin Zeitler is a solid guard. The New York Giants were set to pay him $14.5 million. And he carried only a $2 million dead cap, and so they ended up saving $12 million. It might have been $14 million. But he ultimately ended up signing, according to Adam Schefter, former Giants guard Kevin Zeitler reached an agreement on a 3-year deal for $22.5 million, including a $16 million guaranteed with the Baltimore Ravens per league sources, which tells you he's only worth half of what the New York Giants were set to pay him this year. That, on average, is about $7.5 million a year. The Giants were set to pay him $14, which would only tell you that all the other guards on the market probably aren't going to get near the $14 million that he was set to get. He gets $16 million here guaranteed. He was only due $14, and he gets a 2-year commitment. But ultimately, this probably will only work out to a 2-year, $16 million contract, and then he'll probably cut on the 3rd year. That would be my guess, but the market was much lower than what the New York Giants were paying him, and it would make you think the Giants should be able to find a solid guard in free agency for a similar comparable price, which would ultimately save them money on this year's salary cap. Of course, we don't know the details yet about Nate Solder and how much the Giants will be saving from that, but that will be some cap savings and will add to the depth of this offensive line. But you got to think, with all the guards that are out there, you heard about Trey Turner, there's several others, the Giants may pique interest at that position, and if they don't in free agency, expect them to attack it quick in the draft. Next thing we're going to pull up is this, the news about Shaq Barrett and how it may potentially affect the negotiations between Leonard Williams and the New York Giants. Buccaneers are giving Shaq Barrett a 4-year deal worth $72 million, including $36 million fully guaranteed. Well, if you average that out, that's only $18 million a year. Leonard Williams is already making $19.3 on the franchise tag, and he's fighting for $21.4. So what that tells me is the New York Giants would be going well above market value if they were willing to meet Leonard Williams' contract demands. In the end, it may be in Leonard Williams' best interest, actually, to play on the franchise tag, because other teams are going to look at that deal, and how are they going to justify to their fans paying Leonard Williams $21, $22, $23 million a year when Shaq Barrett, who many feel is at least comparable or better than Leonard Williams, you're talking about a guy that led the league in sacks just 2 years ago with the Tampa Bay Bucks, around the same age as Leonard Williams, is only getting $18 million a year. Now, of course, like I said, Barrett may have been able to get more. This is a guy that is trying to duplicate what they did last year and win a Super Bowl and maybe staying on a hometown discount. The Bucks, of course, showed faith in him when they signed him coming from the Denver Broncos, and maybe he's saying, I'm happy here, I want to win another Super Bowl, I want to compete. But the fact that he got $18 million, I don't know how in the world you'd be able to justify to New York Giants fans giving Leonard Williams $22, $21, $22, $23 million a year. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense, and if the Giants are smart, they play hardball here and they let the market play out, because I can't see any team justifying paying him more than $19 or $20 million a year. Yes, like I said, maybe you could say to yourself, yeah, it's a hometown discount because it's with the Bucks, but I don't know how you tell your fan base that you paid Leonard Williams $22 or $23 million a year when Shaq Barrett got 18. So that's the way I see it, and I think it's nothing but good news so far for the New York Giants. We'll figure out how all this plays out as the market continues to develop. You're going to see a lot of player movement. I'm going to be live in about 5 minutes if you're watching this video, so you can hang out with me on the live stream. But I wanted to give my initial thoughts on some of the news that has come out around the league. I think the fact that Shaq Barrett signed for that should give the New York Giants a little bit more leverage in their negotiations. And if Leonard Williams isn't willing to cave his demands of what we've heard, well, he's not going to be a Giant, or he shouldn't be anyway, or he's going to play on that franchise tag. Kenny Golladay meeting with the New York Giants, at least according to Adam Schefter via television. Giants could very well be in play for that. Don't look at the salary cap numbers right now. That could change on a dime. The New York Giants could absolutely adjust their salary cap by March 17th to make sure that Golladay is on this roster. They could even rescind the tag of Leonard Williams before that March 17th date to make sure they could sign Golladay if they don't feel like they'll be able to work out a long-term extension. So there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. Haven't heard anything about Dalvin Tomlinson. Maybe we'll start to hear things about that, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.